In the heart of Rome, 44 BC, the city buzzed with anticipation for a great festival. This ancient celebration, held on the 15th day of every February, was defined by rituals meant to purify the city and promote health and fertility. Julius Caesar, Rome's leader, took his place at the rostra, the public platform in the forum, seated on a gilded chair that signified his unparalleled authority. The air was thick with expectation as Mark Antony approached, a loyal ally of Caesar and the highest elected official of the Republic. With him was a golden crown, an innocent gift which he was offering to Caesar on behalf of Rome. The crowd watched as Caesar publicly declined the offer, pushing the crown away. Antony persisted, offering it again, and once more Caesar declined. The crowd erupted, not in disappointment, but in relief and applause. To them, this was a clear sign that Caesar had no intention of becoming a monarch. The concept of a king was not a recognized position in Rome then, but the difference between the power of Julius Caesar and that of a king was minimal, as the vibrant ruler wielded supreme authority. This led some to believe that the public refusal was just a mere show for the people of Rome, who loved him dearly and revered him so greatly. Yet in just a month after the festival, on the Ides of March, Caesar was violently murdered. Why was he murdered, and what were the details of his death? The previous year, Caesar had just emerged victorious in the civil war against Pompey. His triumphs led to the granting of numerous honors by the Republic. In these honors, he was named Father of the Country, appointed dictator for life, and granted a 10-year consulship. His person was declared sacred and inviolable. Decrees mandated that he rule from a throne of ivory and gold, always don triumphal attire during sacrifices, and that annual celebrations commemorate his victories. When these honors were presented to the triumphant general for approval, Caesar made his first political mistake. He sat down while receiving them. It is recounted that this act angered not only the Senate, but also the populace, who felt the state's dignity was undermined. Shortly thereafter came the Lupercalia festival, the festival wherein Caesar was offered the position of the king, which he declined. However, when Rome's aristocrats had discovered that the crown presented to Caesar had royal diadems, a symbol of kingship, they were greatly annoyed. The royal diadems were quickly removed by the tribunes, and the perpetrators of the act were jailed by them. When Caesar heard what they had done, he confronted the tribunes for affronting his dignity, commanding that they be relieved of their positions and dismissed. This defiled the traditional untouchability of the tribunes, alarming Rome's conservative senators, who viewed it as an overreach of power and feared they could be next. Caesar's action intensified suspicions of his monarchical ambitions, threatening Rome's systems of check and balances. And thus began the conspiracy to end Julius Caesar. Enter Mark Brutus, a descendant of the Brutus who expelled Rome's last king and was seen as the Republic's potential savior by the conspiring senators. He was also close to Caesar, whom had spared him during the Civil War and surprisingly appointed him urban prefect. Anonymous messages from fellow senators implored Brutus to awaken to his duty, with notes stating, "Thou art asleep, Brutus. Thou art not Brutus." Approximately 60 conspirators, including his brother-in-law Cassius, lured Brutus into the plot. However, Mark Antony, the highest-ranking senator and close ally of Caesar, who had handed him the royal diadems, was deliberately kept out of the plot. In the days leading up to his assassination, there were several signs and revelations that could have saved Caesar. On the night before his death, Caesar dined with Lepidus, a close ally, who during the dinner suddenly asked him what the best way for a man to die was. Caesar responded that a sudden and unexpected demise was the best, unknowingly foretelling his own fate. That same night, his wife had dreamt of his body streaming with blood, and by morning pleaded with him not to go out. But Caesar was persuaded by Decimus Brutus, one of the conspirators, to attend the Senate meeting, where he was promised to be granted the title of a king, lest he should not disappoint those awaiting him and appear disrespectful. In 4 days, Caesar was preparing to depart Rome for a campaign against the Parthians, aiming to avenge a friend's death and expand his power. This impending departure pressured the conspirators to plot swiftly, fearing that if Caesar conquered these nations, he would return with undeniable authority as king. Given that the assassination plot was hastily planned, it was not hard for parts of it to leak, but attempts to get it to Caesar either arrived too late or were ignored. On the D-Day, the Roman senators convened in the Curia of Pompey, adjacent to the theater of Pompey. The conspirators, prepared for the worst, were ready to use their daggers on themselves if the plot failed. It is noted that Brutus's wife, Portia, who was also aware of the plot, was so overcome with anxiety that she fainted.
Hey, if you've made it this far, you're one of us. Every like, comment, and subscription means a lot, so if you just want to hang out again, please hit that red button. Now, back to the story.
When Caesar approached the entrance of the Senate, an anonymous person discreetly handed him a letter and told him to read it alone. Caesar chose to disregard it. We would later discover the letter warned Caesar of the coming assassination. Many question why Caesar had not entered the Senate with bodyguards. Caesar did have bodyguards, but allowing them into the Senate with him would be seen as disrespectful, as it implied that he either expected violence or served as a threat. Hence, it had become customary for leaders to walk into the Senate without bodyguards, coupled with the fact that weapons were banned in Rome at that time. As Caesar entered the building, he jested that the day had arrived. Taking his seat, everyone settled down as the meeting proceeded to begin. Once in session, a man named Cimber approached Caesar loudly, demanding he pardon his brother, who had fought against Caesar during the Civil War. Caesar refuses his request, stating that his brother had been banished on legal grounds. Cimber immediately grabbed Caesar's toga and ripped it off his shoulders, to which Caesar screamed, "This is violence!" However, this was only a signal to begin the assassination. A senator named Casca approached Caesar from behind, pulling out his dagger and missing a strike to stab Caesar. Caesar was no pushover, as the seasoned veteran quickly grabbed Casca and began wrestling with him before he could lay another strike. For a few seconds, everyone froze in silence, until Casca yelled, "Brother, help me!" Casca's brother Tumultuous leapt up and charged at Caesar. Caesar quickly broke free of Casca, only for a senator named Cassius to slash Caesar in the face with a knife. This caused Caesar to fall onto Tumultuous, who stabs him in the ribs. Surrounded by dagger-wielding senators, Caesar turned from one attacker to another as he cried like a wild beast, receiving a dose from each of them. When he had fallen to the ground, Brutus approached him and stabbed him between his legs, prompting Caesar to shamefully cover himself with his toga and give up. Some recounted that he addressed Brutus in Greek, saying, "You too, my child," as the betrayal was like none he could imagine. Despite the groin wound being deemed fatal, the conspirators continued their assault, even injuring each other in the frenzy. Some of the senators who were not part of the plot were held back by the others, and the nearest armed men in the area were some gladiators hired by the conspirators. Mark Antony himself, who could have been a big help to Caesar, was being distracted outside the Senate house until the deed was done. Even though some believe that he was aware of the assassination plot beforehand, but chose to do nothing. In the immediate aftermath of Julius Caesar's death, Rome was thrown into turmoil. Mark Antony, seizing the moment, delivered a stirring funeral oration that incited the public against the conspirators, forcing them to flee the city to escape mob violence. Caesar's veteran legions, outraged by the murder of their leader, rallied against Brutus and Cassius, culminating in battles that resulted in the deaths of both men, as well as the eventual demise of all conspirators. In the power vacuum that followed, Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, emerged as the sole ruler of Rome, marking the end of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire.